when the blood crept from its face and left behind a pallid mask of chalk with leaden eyes, he would keep the glamour of boyhood. As usual, today's tip on reading literature might sound a bit silly, perhaps even a bit controversial. My tips on how to read literature are mainly for students who have to read novels for a course. Even if you like reading novels, you might find that being told to read some old novel from yesteryear is the last thing you'd want to do. Students might decide instead to just read a summary of the story or take notes from an online study guide. These videos are more for the student who actually wants to read but just finds it difficult to do so. My tip today is not to read the novel that you were given to read, but rather to experience it. It is to give yourself over to the story, to momentarily surrender oneself to the author's whims and narrative. This is perhaps quite controversial. After all, students are supposed to study a novel. One's enjoyment is surely irrelevant. But I would say not. In fact, some study guides even say that, ideally, you should read the novel twice, only analysing and taking notes on the second reading. Well, in the English philology course at IFA at Wrocław University, where literature is only just a part of your overall course, even reading the novel once might be considered something of an achievement. The idea of reading it twice, therefore, almost seems ridiculous. But in this case, the second reading is just a theoretical study. The first reading is the actual experiencing of the novel, as though you were just a casual reader. I am not even sure if my teachers would entirely agree, but it always worked for me. Experiencing a novel is like experiencing life. The more you immerse in the story, the more you'll remember it. The type of reading I am recommending with novels is called recreational reading. The style is known as passive reading. If, like myself, you have a preference for watching films and videos, then remember that the reading of these novels was once considered to be a pastime that was both strongly influential and highly addictive. I've recently started reading a book called The Woman Reader by Professor Kate Flint, which reveals and catalogues the many opinions of the Victorian period concerning the dangers of such recreational reading to women. Paraphrasing the Victorian essayist William Rathbone Gregg, Flint writes that fiction was accused of encouraging lethargy, narcolepsy, and at worst creating drug-like habits of dependence. So actually the real worry was that of the surrendering of oneself to the novel, which, of course, is my tip. Perhaps my tip would be criticised both in the Victorian times as well as today. But I find that I can also be a good observer when I'm passively reading as well as when I'm actively reading. I tend to do the same with films. I try to leave my prejudice at the door and not attempt to view the novel from any particular perspective prior to completing the reading of it. Of course, it is not something easily done. Perhaps it is only a state of mind, a mere pretense on my part. But it is something you can try all the same. My tip is not to stop and take notes, just read and enjoy. And read it at first just as a novel, a work of fiction and nothing more. Of course, this episode's opening passage came from Oscar Wilde's novel The Picture of Dorian Gray. In this borrowed copy from IFA Library, it seems that this particular past reader might have been the more active kind, as they chose to inscribe the words chauvinist pig in Polish as marginalia in response to Lord Henry's views on women. I'm not saying that active reading is bad or worse than passive. Obviously, students have to be active at some point. but let's not forget the joys of passively reading, or even the value it may yet offer to the modern student. Surely the danger of corrupting one's morals from reading such scandalous Victorian fiction is firmly consigned to the past, and so there is nothing really to fear in taking such a passive approach. In summary, the idea behind this tip is to try to encourage or promote the base enjoyment of reading, especially when that reading and the subject of reading is obligatory and not a novel of your own choosing. Thank you.